My son came home shaking, deeply humiliated. Auntie's cruelty. Go wait outside in the cold while we open gifts. I didn't hesitate. I drove to their house, walked in, and started removing all items I'd paid for. My sister screamed, "What on earth are you doing?" Dad tried to block me, but my next swift action silenced the whole family instantly. Could a single act of cold, calculated cruelty shatter a family beyond repair, or could it surprisingly be the very thing that finally forces a toxic dynamic to break? The night air, sharp and unforgiving, clung to my son, Leo, even after he stepped inside. His little body shivered uncontrollably, his cheeks flushed crimson against a face that was far too pale, far too still for a 7-year-old who'd just been at a birthday party. His small hands trembled, fumbling with his scarf, and a knot of dread began tightening in my stomach. "Sweetheart," I whispered, kneeling, my heart already aching. "How was the party at Aunt Chloe's?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. His gaze drifted past me, unfocused, haunted. When he finally spoke, his voice was a thin, reedy whisper that cut right through me. "Auntie told me to wait outside in the cold while they opened gifts." The words hung heavy in the air, a punch to the gut. Something shifted inside me, a cold, hard rage beginning to crystallize in my veins. It wasn't an explosive anger, not yet, but a slow, steady freeze spreading from my chest. "She what?" My voice somehow remained calm, but Leo's lower lip began to quiver. Anyway, everyone was inside. Cousin Sophia got to open her presents from Grandma and Grandpa. And Aunt Chloe said I had to wait on the porch because there wasn't enough room. His voice cracked, the small sound tearing at my soul. "It was really cold, Mom." My fingers hurt. I pulled him into my arms, the icy chill of his body shocking me even through his coat. It was damp from melted snow. "How long? 10 minutes? 20? Long enough for his teeth to chatter, for fear to burrow deep into his little bones alongside the cold. My sister, Chloe, had always been competitive. Since childhood, she needed to win, to have the best of everything. When I married Mark before she'd even had a serious boyfriend, the resentment was a tangible thing at our wedding. She'd even worn white. My mom had to pull her aside. But this? Using my child as a pawn in whatever twisted game was playing out in her head? That was a line I never, ever imagined she'd cross. I stood up, my decision already made. "Go get changed into warm pajamas, honey," I told Leo, my voice softer than I felt. "Hot chocolate will be ready when you come back down." He nodded, trudging upstairs, as I pulled out my phone. Mark answered on the second ring. "Can you come home early?" I didn't wait for an answer. "It's important." 40 minutes later, Mark stood in our living room, his face darkening with every word I spoke. He was usually the calm one, my steady anchor, but now his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. "We're going over there," he said flatly. "No," I countered, grabbing my keys. "I'm going alone. This is between me and my family." The drive to Chloe's took 12 minutes. I'd made that drive hundreds of times, bringing gifts, dropping off meals, helping her move furniture. My knuckles were white, gripping the steering wheel. Chloe's colonial home, the one she'd always dreamed of, sparkled with Christmas lights, lights I'd helped her hang just last weekend. My parents' cars were in the driveway. A family gathering. A gathering my son had been excluded from in the most humiliating way possible. I didn't knock. The door swung open effortlessly, and I walked straight into the living room where everyone was gathered. Chloe sat on the couch, Sophia on her lap, showing off a new toy. My parents were on the love seat, drinks in hand. Chloe's husband, Daniel, stood by the fireplace, poker-faced as always. They all turned to stare. "Oh, hi." Chloe's smile was plastic, stretched too thin. "I didn't know you were coming. Where's the television?" I walked directly to the entertainment center. The brackets for the 55-inch flat screen I'd bought her last Christmas were still there, but the TV was gone. Chloe's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "The TV I bought you last Christmas." "Where is it?" I opened the cabinet below, finding it empty. "Never mind. I can see you've already moved it." "That's fine. I'll take the coffee maker from the kitchen instead." My boots clicked purposefully on the hardwood as I strode past her. Behind me, I heard Chloe scramble to her feet. Mom, what is she doing? I unplugged the expensive espresso machine, the one I'd saved up for because Chloe had mentioned wanting it every single time we met for 6 months. My mother appeared in the doorway, confusion etched across her face. Honey, what's going on? Ask your other daughter why my 7-year-old son came home hypothermic because she made him stand outside in December weather while everyone else opened presents. I picked up the machine, carrying it toward the front door. It wasn't that cold. Chloe followed me, her voice rising defensively. He was only outside for a few minutes. His fingers hurt, Chloe. He was shaking so badly he could barely untie his scarf. I set the coffee maker by the door and headed back inside. How many minutes is acceptable to you? At what point does it become child endangerment? Dad now stood in the hallway, blocking my path. He'd always been Chloe's fiercest defender, always making excuses. When she'd borrowed my car without asking and returned it with a dent, he told me to be more understanding. When she announced her engagement at my baby shower, stealing my moment, he'd said I was oversensitive. You're overreacting, he said now, arms crossed. Chloe said there wasn't enough space inside for everyone. She was just trying to manage a crowded house. Then she should have taken turns. Had the children rotate. If space was such an issue. My gaze was unwavering. But she didn't do that, did she? Because Sophia stayed inside the whole time. Only Leo got sent out into the cold. Only my son. Silence fell, heavy and thick. Sophia had started crying on the couch, confused by the adult tension. Daniel still hadn't moved, his expression a mask. Sometimes I wondered if he even noticed how his wife treated people. Move, Dad. My voice was steady cold. I'm going upstairs to get the bedding set I gave Chloe for her birthday. This is ridiculous. But he stepped aside, perhaps seeing something in my eyes that warned against further interference. Chloe's bedroom looked like a magazine spread, all soft grays and whites. The luxury duvet set I'd bought, 3 weeks of my grocery budget, covered her king-sized bed. I stripped it off efficiently, folding it into a neat pile. Please stop. Chloe appeared in the doorway, her earlier bravado crumbling. People make mistakes. I wasn't thinking clearly. There were so many people here, and Sophia was so excited, and you just made my child stand in the freezing cold while his cousin got spoiled rotten. I grabbed the matching pillow shams. Tell me, Chloe, what was going through your mind? Was it satisfying? Did it feel good to finally put my son in his place? I don't know what you mean. But her eyes darted away, unable to hold my gaze. You've been jealous since the day I got married. You couldn't stand that I found happiness first, that I had a baby before you did, that Mark and I bought our house while you were still renting. But I never thought you'd take it out on an innocent child. I moved past her, back toward the stairs. The living room was a tableau of frozen family members. Mom wrung her hands. Dad had returned to his spot, looking older, more uncertain. Daniel finally moved, taking a sniffling Sophia upstairs. I made 3 more trips. The kitchen towels Chloe had gushed over last Easter. The wolf throw blanket I'd bought her when she complained about being cold during movie nights. The expensive knife block when she took up cooking classes. Each item chosen carefully, thoughtfully, because despite everything, she was my sister. And I had loved her. Past tense. I had loved her. You can't just take everything back. Chloe's composure was completely shattered now. She followed me to my car, her voice shrill in the quiet suburban evening. That's not how gifts work. You're absolutely right. I loaded the last box into my trunk. Gifts are given out of love and generosity. But you forfeited any claim to my generosity when you endangered my child. These aren't gifts anymore, Chloe. They're payment for the therapy bills Leo will probably need after today. Mom finally found her voice. Both of you need to calm down and talk about this rationally. There's nothing to talk about. I slammed the trunk closed. Leo won't be attending any more family functions at Chloe's house. If you want to see your grandson, you're welcome at my home. But I'm done pretending that her behavior is acceptable just because we share DNA. So, you're going to split the family apart over this? Dad's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment, the one that had made me feel small and guilty my entire childhood. The old me would have buckled, apologized, returned everything, convinced myself I'd overreacted. But the new me, the mother who had held her shaking child, felt nothing but resolute. I'm not splitting anything apart, Dad. Chloe did that the moment she chose her jealousy over my son's well-being. I opened my car door. You all get to decide what happens next. Either you acknowledge what she did was wrong and make sure it never happens again, or you lose access to Leo and me. Chloe's face was blotchy with tears. I said I was sorry. No, you didn't actually. I paused with one foot in the car. You made excuses. You defended yourself. You minimized what you did. But you never once said you were sorry. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Chloe. Chloe looked at the ground, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. None of them spoke. That's what I thought. I slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. The drive home blurred past, my mind replaying the confrontation. Had I gone too far? The question surfaced briefly, then drowned under the memory of Leo's trembling hands and whispered words. No, I'd gone exactly far enough. Mark met me at the door, helping carry the boxes inside without asking questions. He'd already put Leo to bed, reading him 3 extra stories to chase away the bad memories. Our house felt warm and safe, a stark contrast to the cold atmosphere I'd left behind at Chloe's. How'd it go? Mark set the coffee maker on our kitchen counter. About as well as expected. I sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. I don't think they understand yet, but they will. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. Mom's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times that evening, followed by 2 texts. Dad tried once, his message gruff and short. This is childish. Call your mother. I blocked both numbers. Chloe's text arrived near midnight. I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. I stared at those words for a long time, feeling nothing but a cold, detached clarity. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd simply stopped participating in a dynamic where my sister's feelings mattered more than my son's safety. The next morning, Mark found me making breakfast. Leo sat at the table, coloring superheroes fighting dragons. He seemed better, the color back in his cheeks, his hands steady. Work called, Mark said quietly. Said your mother showed up at the office asking for you. She knows where I live if she wants to talk. I flipped a pancake, watching the bubbles form on its surface. Your dad also called me, said you were being unreasonable and needed to return Chloe's things. Mark leaned against the counter. I told him that wasn't happening. 3 days passed. My phone stayed silent. I'd half expected my parents to show up demanding a conversation, but they stayed away. Maybe they were waiting for me to crack, to feel guilty enough to apologize. They didn't understand that something fundamental had shifted inside me. On the 4th day, my Aunt Susan called. She was Mom's older sister, someone I'd always admired for her directness and refusal to tolerate nonsense. Your mother told me what happened, Susan said without preamble. I need to hear your side. I explained everything, from Leo's shaking hands to the confrontation at Chloe's. Susan listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of acknowledgement. Grace is upset, she said when I finished. Grace was my mother's name. But between you and me, Chloe's had this coming for a long time. That girl's been spoiled rotten since birth. Relief flooded through me, unexpected and overwhelming. You believe me? Of course I believe you. I've watched Chloe steamroll over you for 30 years. Your mother's always made excuses for her behavior, said she was just spirited or passionate or whatever other word she could use instead of selfish. Susan sighed heavily. But using a child as a pawn? That crosses a line even I didn't think Chloe would cross. We talked for an hour. Susan shared stories I'd never heard before, times Chloe had manipulated family situations, moments Mom had covered for her less acceptable behaviors. The pattern stretched back further than I'd realized. What should I do? I finally asked. Exactly what you're doing. Hold your ground. Chloe needs to face real consequences for once in her life, or she'll never change. Susan paused. And if your parents can't see that, well, that's their failure, not yours. Christmas approached, bringing with it the usual family traditions. Mom hosted Christmas Eve dinner every year, an elaborate affair. The invitation arrived, a formal card. No phone call, no personal note, just the standard. I threw it in the recycling bin. Mark raised an eyebrow. Not going. They haven't apologized. They haven't even acknowledged that Chloe did anything wrong. I pulled out my laptop, searching for recipes. We'll host our own Christmas here. Just us and Leo. Make our own traditions. Christmas Eve arrived, cold and clear, snow falling in soft flurries. Mark and I spent the day cooking while Leo decorated cookies. His earlier trauma seemingly forgotten in the excitement of the holiday. We made roasted chicken instead of turkey, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds. Everything smelled incredible. My phone buzzed during dinner. Mom's number, finally calling after weeks of silence. I silenced it and passed the potatoes to Mark. Aren't you going to answer that? Leo asked around a mouthful of chicken. Not tonight, buddy. Tonight's just for us. Mom left a voicemail. I listened to it later while cleaning up. Mark was putting Leo to bed. I don't understand why you're doing this. Her voice sounded thick with tears. It's Christmas Eve and you're not here. Chloe's devastated. She keeps crying, saying she's lost her sister over nothing. Your father thinks you've had some kind of breakdown. Please, just come over. We can work this out. Over nothing. Those 2 words crystallized everything wrong with my family's dynamics. Mom saw Chloe's tears, heard her distress, and concluded I must be the problem. She couldn't conceive of a world where her golden child had genuinely done something unforgivable. I deleted the voicemail. January brought new developments. Susan called to report that Chloe had been complaining to everyone about my dramatic overreaction. According to family gossip, I'd stolen her belongings, threatened her marriage, and was alienating Sophia from family members. The funny thing is, Susan said with dark amusement, most people are nodding along to be polite, but I've heard several cousins questioning Chloe's version of events. They've seen how she operates over the years. Validation felt strange after weeks of silence. Part of me had wondered if I'd misjudged the situation. But hearing that others had witnessed Chloe's patterns reassured me. Has anyone confronted her about the truth? I asked. Your cousin Angela straight up asked her why Leo was left outside in the cold. Chloe apparently burst into tears and left the room. Susan chuckled. Angela told me she found the reaction very telling. February marked 2 months since the incident. Leo had stopped asking about visiting Aunt Chloe's house, his child's mind moving on to other concerns. He'd made a new best friend, discovered a passion for building with blocks, and generally seemed happier than before. Children possessed a resilience adults could only envy. Mark and I had settled into our new normal, a family unit of 3 without the extended drama. Life felt lighter somehow. Then Chloe showed up at my door on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd been folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see her car, see her standing on my porch, looking nervous. Smaller than I remembered. She'd lost weight, her coat hung loose. Opening the door felt like stepping onto dangerous ground, but curiosity won. What do you want? I didn't invite her inside. Chloe's voice was strained. Please, just 5 minutes. I considered slamming the door, but something in her expression gave me pause. She looked genuinely miserable, beyond temporary discomfort. You have 5 minutes. I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind me. She didn't deserve access to my home, my safe space. Chloe flinched at my cold tone, but pressed forward. I've been going to therapy. Started right after Christmas. My therapist says I have issues with jealousy and control stemming from childhood. Congratulations on this self-discovery. My voice dripped sarcasm. Is that supposed to make what you did to Leo okay? No. Nothing makes it okay. She twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture I'd seen countless times. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to tell you that I understand now why you reacted the way you did. Silence stretched between us. A car drove past. Somewhere, children laughed, building a snowman. I put a child in danger because I was mad at you, Chloe continued, her voice breaking. Because you have this perfect little family, and I'm struggling with Sophia's behavioral issues at school, and Daniel, and I barely talk anymore, and everything feels like it's falling apart. But instead of dealing with my own problems, I took it out on Leo, a 7-year-old who never did anything wrong. Tears streamed down her face now, genuine emotion cracking through her usual defensive facade. I watched impassively, waiting for the manipulation that usually followed her tears. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see how horrible I've been. Not just that day, but for years. All the times I made your accomplishments about me. All the passive-aggressive comments. All the competition I forced between us." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "You deserved better. Leo deserved better." "Yes, we did." I crossed my arms against the February cold. "Why now, Chloe? Why show up after 2 months?" "Because my therapist asked me who I'd be without you in my life, and I realized I'd be nobody." Her laugh sounded broken, painful. "You were always the good one, the kind one, the one who took care of everyone. I resented you for it instead of learning from you. And now I've lost you, and it's exactly what I deserve. But I'm still here begging for a chance I probably won't get." Something shifted in my chest, a tiny crack in the ice that had built around my heart. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of understanding. "You endangered my son," I said quietly. "That's not something I can just get over because you've had a few therapy sessions." "I know. I'm not asking you to get over it. I'm asking if maybe someday, after I've proven I've changed, there might be room for me in your life again. Even just at the edges." Chloe's eyes met mine, red-rimmed but steady. "I'll do whatever it takes. Years if necessary. I just need to know it's possible." I thought about Leo upstairs, safe and warm and loved. I thought about the family I protected by setting boundaries, by refusing to accept unacceptable behavior. I thought about how much easier my life had become without the constant stress of managing Chloe's jealousy and Mom's enabling. "I don't know if it's possible," I admitted. "But I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you actually saying the words instead of making excuses." "I'm sorry." Chloe's voice cracked completely. "I'm so sorry for what I did to Leo. For everything I've done to you over the years. You deserved a better sister." We stood there in the cold February afternoon, 2 women who shared blood and history, but little else anymore. The gap between us felt vast, possibly uncrossable. But Chloe had taken the first step, had walked through her pride, and offered genuine accountability. "I need time," I told her. "A lot of time. And even then, I can't promise anything." "I understand." She nodded, turning to leave. Then she paused, looking back. For what it's worth, I told Mom and Dad what really happened that day. The whole truth. They're not happy with me right now. She walked to her car and drove away, leaving me alone on my porch with more questions than answers. Inside, the house waited with its warmth and safety. Mark would ask what happened, and I'd tell him everything. Together, we'd decide how to move forward. My phone rang that evening. Mom's number. This time, I answered. "I owe you an apology," she said before I could speak. Chloe told us everything today. The real version, not the story she'd been telling everyone. I kept my voice neutral, waiting. "And I should have believed you from the beginning. I should have protected my grandson instead of protecting Chloe's feelings." Mom's breath hitched. "I've been a terrible mother to you, always making you accommodate her behavior. I'm ashamed of myself." The apology I'd waited months to hear felt strange now that it had arrived. Part of me wanted to rage. At her, to catalog all the times she'd chosen Chloe over me, but mostly I just felt tired. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "But words aren't enough anymore, Mom. I need to see actual change." "I know. Your father and I have been talking about family therapy. All of us together, working through these patterns." She paused. "Would you be willing to participate if we set it up? Family therapy?" The idea felt simultaneously hopeful and exhausting. Could my family actually change decades of dysfunction? Did I have the energy to try? "Let me think about it," I said finally. "I'll discuss it with Mark and get back to you." "That's fair." "And sweetheart, I love you." I should have said that more. I should have shown it better. We talked for another 20 minutes, actually communicating instead of just exchanging pleasantries. Mom admitted things I'd never heard her acknowledge before. How she'd seen Chloe's jealousy but dismissed it as sibling rivalry. How she'd been overwhelmed by Chloe's intense emotions and taken the path of least resistance. How she failed to see the damage this caused me until it was almost too late. When I hung up, Mark found me sitting in the kitchen, staring at nothing. "How do you feel?" he asked, pulling up a chair beside me. Confused, relieved, angry, hopeful, I leaned against his shoulder. All of it at once. "That sounds about right." He kissed the top of my head. "What do you want to do?" The question hung in the air. What did I want? To forgive and forget? To maintain the boundaries I'd established? To cautiously rebuild while protecting my son? "I want to take it one day at a time," I said slowly. "Let Chloe prove herself through actions, not words. See if Mom and Dad actually follow through on therapy. Keep Leo safe above everything else." "Sounds like a solid plan." Mark squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Spring arrived gradually, winter releasing its grip one cold morning at a time. Chloe's therapy continued, and she started sending periodic updates through Susan, respecting my need for space while showing her progress. Small things at first. How she'd recognized a jealous thought and worked through it instead of acting on it. How she'd apologized to Daniel for years of resentment. How she'd enrolled Sophia in counseling to address her behavioral issues instead of ignoring them. Mom and Dad set up the family therapy sessions, though I declined to attend the first few. I wanted to see their commitment before investing my time and emotional energy. Susan reported back that they were actually participating, actually examining their parenting mistakes instead of defending themselves. By May, I agreed to have coffee with Chloe. Just the two of us, in a public place, with clear time limits. She looked healthier than she had in February, more settled in her own skin. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as we sat down. "I'm still not ready for more than this," I warned her. "Don't push." "I won't. I'm just grateful you're here." We talked, navigating around the dangerous topics and sticking to neutral ground. She told me about Sophia's progress, how addressing the underlying issues had transformed their household. I told her about Leo's new obsession with dinosaurs. Safe topics, gentle conversation, testing whether we could exist in the same space without conflict. I joined a support group, Chloe mentioned near the end, for people working on jealousy issues. It's been eye-opening hearing other people describe the same patterns I've had my whole life. "That's good," I said, meaning it. One woman in the group told me something that really stuck with me. She said that jealousy is just fear wearing a mask. Fear that we're not good enough, that we'll be left behind, that everyone else's happiness somehow diminishes our own. Chloe stared into her coffee cup. "I've been afraid my whole life that you were the better daughter, the better person. Instead of dealing with that fear, I tried to tear you down." The honesty disarmed me. Old Chloe would have deflected, made excuses, turned the conversation back to her own victimhood. This version took responsibility, examined her motivations, and did the uncomfortable work of self-reflection. "I appreciate you sharing that," I said quietly. We parted with a tentative hug, nothing like the easy embraces we'd shared years ago, but a start. Progress measured in inches rather than miles. The family therapy sessions began in June. Walking into that office felt like volunteering for emotional surgery without anesthesia, but I committed to trying. Mom and Dad sat on one couch, Chloe and I on separate chairs. The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Miller, guided us through exercises in communication and boundary setting. "Tell your sister how her actions made you feel," Dr. Miller prompted during our third session. I looked at Chloe across the small office. Betrayed. Furious. Protective. When Leo came home shaking, I saw red. But underneath the anger was this deep hurt that you'd use my child to hurt me. It made me question every good memory we had together. Chloe's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I understand. I destroyed your trust completely that day, and all the days before it when I prioritized my jealousy over your feelings. And what about you?" Dr. Miller turned to Chloe. "What do you need from your sister?" "Patience while I prove I've changed. And honestly, I need her to know that I see her now. Really see her. Not as competition, but as a person who deserves respect and love." Chloe's hands twisted in her lap. I wasted so many years being envious when I should have been grateful to have a sister like her. The sessions continued through the summer. Some days brought breakthroughs. Others ended with tension still crackling in the air. But slowly, painfully, we began rebuilding something from the ruins of our relationship. Not the same bond we'd had before, that was gone forever, but maybe something more honest, built on accountability instead of obligation. In August, I agreed to bring Leo to a supervised family gathering at Susan's house. My aunt had offered to host, providing neutral territory and an extra set of watchful eyes. Mom and Dad came, Chloe with Sophia and Daniel. The first hour felt stiff and awkward, everyone trying too hard to act normal. Then Leo and Sophia discovered Susan's collection of board games, and their delighted squeals broke the tension. They raced around, playing and laughing, oblivious to the adult complexity swirling around them. Chloe watched them with an expression I couldn't quite read, longing mixed with regret. "They're good kids," she said quietly, standing next to me by the window. "They are." I kept my eyes on Leo, making sure he stayed happy and included. "I promise I'll never hurt him again. Or you." Chloe's voice carried absolute conviction. "I know promises don't mean much after what I did, but I need you to hear it anyway." I glanced at her, seeing the sincerity in her face. "I believe you're trying." "That's enough for now." The gathering ended successfully, Leo chattering happily about how much fun he'd had with Sophia. In the car ride home, he asked when we could visit Susan's house again. "Soon, buddy," I promised, meeting Mark's eyes in the rearview mirror. September brought a surprise development. Chloe called, asking if she could take Leo to the Children's Museum as a way of making amends. My instinct screamed no, every protective impulse flared at once. But Mark gently pointed out that healing required trust, and trust required opportunities to prove worthiness. "I'll meet you there," I told Chloe. "We can all go together." The museum trip became a template for future interactions, controlled environments, clear expectations, my presence ensuring Leo's safety. Chloe never pushed for more than I offered, never complained about the boundaries I maintained. She showed up consistently, kept her promises, and demonstrated through actions that she'd genuinely changed. By October, 10 months after the incident that had shattered our family, we'd achieved something resembling normalcy. Not the old normal where I'd absorbed Chloe's bad behavior to keep the peace, but a new equilibrium built on mutual respect and honest communication. Mom and Dad had worked through their enabling patterns in therapy, learning to hold Chloe accountable instead of making excuses. Chloe continued her individual work, dismantling the jealousy that had poisoned her relationships. Leo, remarkably resilient as children often are, had forgiven more easily than I could. He enjoyed spending time with Sophia again, though he understood the rules about never being left alone at Chloe's house. The boundaries I'd established that cold December night remained firmly in place, protecting my son while allowing carefully monitored family connections. "Do you regret it?" Mark asked one evening as we sat on our porch watching autumn leaves fall. "Everything that happened last year?" I thought about the question carefully. Did I regret standing up for my son? Absolutely not. Did I regret the pain and division that followed? The answer felt more complicated. "I regret that it was necessary," I said finally. "I regret that my family couldn't see Chloe's behavior until I forced them to confront it. But I don't regret protecting Leo. I'd do it again in a heartbeat." "Good answer." He squeezed my hand. Inside the house, Leo practiced piano, the notes floating through the evening air. My son, safe and loved and thriving. Chloe had taken something precious from him that December day, but she hadn't broken him. And in the process of protecting him, I'd found a strength I never knew I possessed. The road to rebuilding trust stretched long ahead of us. Years of careful steps and consistent actions. Some days would be harder than others. Some wounds might never fully heal. But we were moving forward instead of staying trapped in dysfunctional patterns. And that progress mattered. My family would never be perfect, but maybe with enough work and honesty and respect for boundaries, we could become functional. That seemed like a worthwhile goal to work toward. And if we couldn't? If Chloe backslid or Mom and Dad returned to their old enabling ways? Then I had my answer ready, forged in the fire of that December confrontation. I'd choose my son every single time, without hesitation or regret. Some lines, once crossed, redrew the map entirely. Chloe had learned that lesson the hard way. But she'd also learned that redemption remained possible for those willing to do the real work of change. Time would tell if that work continued. For now, I'd take each day as it came, protecting my family while cautiously opening doors I'd slammed shut a year ago. Balance felt like walking a tightrope, but I'd grown stronger in the walking. The porch light flickered on automatically as dusk settled over our neighborhood. Inside, Leo's piano practice shifted to a song I recognized, a simple melody about new beginnings. How fitting. Mark and I sat together in the growing darkness, listening to our son's music and contemplating all the complicated ways families break apart and slowly piece themselves back together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions about boundaries and forgiveness and trust. But tonight, in this moment, we had peace. That felt like victory. What do you think? Was confronting my family directly the only way to break this cycle, or could I have found a different path? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.